Welcome back to the Parade Lap. Sophie and I have been traveling quite a lot over the past few weeks. So it's been a while since we caught up on races, and we've had Spain and Monaco happen ahead of Austria. But we are going to go straight into Austria, and then we'll probably have a chat about what happened from Spain and Monaco too, because those were really exciting. But Sophie, what was your reaction to Austria?
Compared to Monaco and Barcelona, it was the most boring one. It was pretty lackluster, I think. I was happy about the podium, but overall, it was just really not that engaging, I thought. It was a very long race, like 71 laps is a long time for not a lot happening. There was a VSC that was somewhat interesting, changed the pit strategy a little bit, but apart from that, it was just it was okay. A beautiful track though, like it's a cool race weekend overall, but it just, yeah, I'd think it was probably one of the most boring of the season so far.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. I feel like we had so much to say about Monaco and Spain. They were amazing. There was just too much going on actually for a podium, whereas this one was pretty boring. I
Mm,
also didn't watch this one live. I was busy when the race was on. I caught some of it like the beginning, but then I watched the highlights for it. So I feel maybe not as engaged with this one. I did see that they were like these interesting like drone shots or something
mm,
that was coming, which was a bit weird where like the angles exactly. I saw that meme where it was like the dogs that
yeah,
were moving their heads. So that was probably the
that's
main
exactly what it
difference.
was like.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah, it was weird. The drone shots are cool, but it was really extreme. It was too
exactly.
much. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, way too much. So we should dive right into this because I'm actually pretty keen to wrap up Austria and reflect on the previous races. Even though they're a bit old now, they were quite exciting.
hmm
So, what was your P3?
My P3 was that it was such a hot race that it caused fire. We had fire reported. This was in the first 10 laps. For context, also, fire reported from Checo and then from Liam. He said Liam was on his front axle, but he just said there's fire on the car. Pretty panicked, and then the commentators didn't really know what was happening, so it was, watching him for a while. And then Valtteri had smoke in the cockpit, so both of the Cadillacs ended up retiring. Liam went on to score points, so I think his issue was fixed. But the track temperature was so hot; it was like 60 degrees Celsius. It was very, very hot. So the cars were just overheating, the drivers were overheating, and that was just an element that was quite a scary kind of thing. But it was interesting that the it played such a role on the tires first of all, but then also just like the brakes and the general cooling of the cars. So yeah, it was so hot, very hot conditions.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of that meme that we use in work or in tech a lot, where it's that like dog with his coffee
Yes,
cup saying like this is fine, and it's
yes.
like the fire all around. It's basically them in these cars. But we just went through a heat wave in the UK. I mean, it's slightly cooler, going into this week, which is great. But it was hot. It was really, really hot, and
hmm
that was also what was happening in Europe also, like where they were racing. But I couldn't imagine being a driver having to put that like suit on, your helmet, get
hmm
into the car in the heat because it was
hmm
so disgustingly hot just like being in my home. That's insane. I actually was wondering if they would like cancel the race or do something if it gets too hot for people.
They were allowed to wear cooling vests as part of their kit under their overalls. So I think they most of them would have done that. But then it changed the weight of the cars. So there was like a 5 kg. I don't know how heavy a cooling vest is, but there was a 5 kg
Extra like
like a
allowance. Yeah.
buffer,
Yeah.
yeah, so that if they were wearing it or if they chose not to, they had to add that weight to the car somehow so that it wasn't a competitive advantage for the people who were number one, they were being cool, and two, that they were heavier. They had some more downforce. But I think that was the only kind of extra thing that was put in place for it.
Yeah, hopefully the next race is a bit cooler. I don't know, but we'll
Yeah.
we'll get to that at the end, which is obviously Silverstone. My P3 was about Charles and, the fact that the sort of Charles Leclerc misery continues for him. He's not been having the greatest season, and especially not the last couple of races. There's been so many memes about him. He obviously re-signed this Ferrari contract and is now locked in with them for a while longer.
Yeah.
And the memes from that were kind of very funny. But he went in Monaco from like the podium to the wall, like in the last couple of laps there. He was on track to be on the podium and he put it on the wall. And he was so frustrated and visibly angry after that particular incident. I've seen him be very hard on himself. Like he always is like quite hard and takes responsibility and, says that he's doing badly. But in Monaco, he was so upset with actually just the car. The car and the brakes and all of it, and he just felt like he couldn't drive it. So I had high hopes for him in this race because he qualified really well. He was P2, he was on the front row behind George, he was ahead of Lewis, and so I was really hoping that Charles could like turn it around. He went from that to finishing 8th. So he went from 2nd to 8th, and you can probably give me more insight into why from watching the full race. But from what I understand, it was just because of in the beginning he sort of lost position to Lewis, within that first lap. But then I think his tires, tire degradation, like not being able to have enough power to really compete and stay with the cars ahead of them this race. And then he got passed by a lot of cars towards the end. Just from watching the highlights, I just kept seeing somebody else go ahead of him, somebody else go ahead of him. And I don't know why that was the case, but I just really feel for him because I feel like he's a driver with so much potential. And it also must be hard for him to have seen like Lando get the World Drivers' Championship last year. And then George now in contention for it, with Mercedes. And those were kind of like his peers in a way. And I think he entered F1 even a year before they did, the Lando, George, kind of Alex rookies. So yeah, it's just sad that he hasn't like really got super close to it.
Yeah, I wasn't paying great attention to Charles during the race, but he was definitely complaining about something on the radio. In Monaco, it was the brakes, and then the brake supplier had to come out with a statement afterwards saying, "Wasn't us, bro." So I don't know what it was this time. I think it must have been his tires, but I think Ferrari also just had some strategy issues this weekend in general. Lewis had some terrible communication things again. I kind of thought they were over that, but apparently not. So I just think it was another unlucky one for Charles. He still ended in the points, which was good, but I think that was probably more of a recovery drive than anything really competitive. So he's probably not that happy going into Silverstone.
No, and I don't know, let's see. Exactly, like you said, Ferrari was on point, like from a strategy point of view in Spain, and in this race, it was just pretty terrible. So their drivers suffered, and really they qualified, was it P2 and P3 in qualifying? Yeah, it was, and then have ended up sort of like, I think Lewis was 5th and Charles 8th, so really bad drive for them this race. But yeah, that was my P3. What was your P2?
My P2 was something I was very happy about. I would have liked for it to be the win, but it was that Max was back on the podium, and I just was really happy with that. He was driver of the day, and he really was the driver of the day. He just did so much, and the crowd was really happy because it was obviously at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, so it was a home race for the team. And everyone was singing like the Max Verstappen song, which was really cool, while they were doing the podium photo, which was a Mercedes focus, really. But it was just cool. I was just very happy for him. So nice that he's back on the podium. It's weird that it's like so far between, like we have to wait. It is an occasion when he's on the podium now, and it used to be a given that he was just like, he was the number one spot and then whoever filled the other ones. So, bit different, but yeah, overall just very happy for him.
Yeah, I thought you would be, especially after him being on the front row in Monaco and like hoping that he would convert that, and then him just stalling. So obviously we didn't even get to see what was possible with him. And then this time around, yeah, he started fifth, and after like a terrible crash, not terrible, but like he crashed in quali, like right at the end.
Yeah, that was bad.
Exactly. To go from that to then, standing on the podium, P2 was amazing for him. And, at his home race, so even better. And I think wasn't it last year that Kimi took him out and so he wasn't able to actually finish?
Oh, yeah, that might have been there.
Yeah, at his home race. And everybody was like...
before it was with Lando.
Oh, so he hasn't had a chance. I don't know what was I can't remember the year before.
Red Bull had been struggling as well with both of the cars. Like, he was on the radio so much, and so was Hadjar. Just that the car was not suited to what they wanted. So it was a good comeback for them.
Yeah. I won't comment too much on it because it is related to something on my podium too. Nice. So I'll come back to that. But my P2 was Russell's qualifying lap. So I thought that was actually the most surprising thing across the race weekend is what happened in qualifying with Russell, because we had the Ferraris being pretty strong, in the last stages of Q3. Hamilton ended up getting provisional pole, and then Leclerc got provisional pole, and then we had the crash, Max's crash, and the yellow flag, coming out. And it was the last. I think it was just Russell and Kimi who still had to go through. And I thought, oh, yeah, obviously they're not going to finish that now. So it's going to be Leclerc and Hamilton in P1 and P2. And then out of nowhere, and I think the commentators thought that too, because they were, everybody was kind of like thinking, oh, well done, Charles. And then out of nowhere, Russell puts a time on the board and he's P1, despite the fact that Max is still, has crashed and is there, and it says yellow flag. And then Kimi aborted his lap, I think he didn't put a new time on the board. So, yeah, that was seriously under investigation. There was lots of back and forth on that. Should he have his time, disqualified because it was double yellow? Russell thought it was single yellow and that he had lifted, and so he had done the right thing. Even when they were doing the interviews post-qualifying, Toto came to him and told him that it was fine. But people were still discussing it as to whether that was correct or not. So, yeah, I just thought it was amazing because in the end it was okay. And it was because it was actually for him when he looked at it a single yellow and he did the lifting, which makes his lap even more amazing because he actually had to slow down for part of it and lose time. But then even with that, he managed to set the pole lap.
Yeah, I think it was a true display of George. It was just George to a T, that he put in a really good lap. He was obviously very, very quick. But while he's doing that, he's seeing the flags pop up, the light box pop up. And immediately he's like, I lifted. And he knew what he needed, what he really had to have heard on the radio, that he was communicating. He was kind of like on a cooking show when they have to explain what they're doing while they're doing it. That's what he was like I lifted, my foot's been up, I lost so-and-so tenths out of there. And then on the team radio afterwards, when they're saying you got pole, he's reiterating that he lifted. And then post-race interviews said it again and again, and then it just kept going. But it probably saved it. He did lift, I guess, but he also lift going into a corner anyway. So it might have also been a little bit lucky that that's where it happened. Was. Yeah. Yeah, and obviously Max's crash was bad, but it was not a safety concern for those on the track, because he was very far off. But it was just George, he knew the rule book to the T, and just the fact that he acted on it in the moment while he's doing this driving so incredibly quick. It was just really impressive. But then also, once he'd said it enough time, I was like, yes, we understand. You have communicated that. Thank you. Everyone's heard it. You can stop saying it. And then Toto came out and, he's saying the same thing. He's like, yeah, I lifted.
Yeah.
Yes, we know. And then it stuck. So good on him, but also it was like, this is why people don't like PR trained answers, because it was like, yeah, we know that you've said that, but what do you feel in this moment? Like, you've just got pole, and he didn't, he didn't give anything above what he had to, what, like the scripted kind of, not scripted, but very heavily media trained answer.
Wow, I didn't think about that though. That actually, yes, it probably took a lot of like mentally to, because it's not like this is happening in slow. It's like in a second or less or whatever. You're seeing that, you're seeing this. You need to know what you have to do, and then also to like communicate it, which is quite a lot. But yeah, I think he needed that, and it's what resulted in him really winning that race too, because he set himself up, right at the front, and then was able to get a good start, and he was kind of away. And had he not been, then if Antonelli Kimi had been closer to him, and they had been actually battling it out a bit more, I don't know what would have happened with the two of them. But he really set himself up to keep himself in the championship battle with Kimi, because now George is second in the Drivers' Championship. Lewis was second briefly in Spain, and now George's back there, and I think it's like a 40 points difference. And obviously George kind of has some momentum going because he did quite well in Spain, Kimi DNF, and now George obviously won this race, and he's going into his home race in Silverstone, so maybe there's going to be momentum from that. But that was my P2. What was your P1?
My P1 joins on to that very nicely, and it is that the T-pose has returned because George won the race. I was really happy for him. I think it was good for the season for the exact reason that you just described with the points difference. It makes it more interesting that it's not just Kimi having this huge lead and going away with it. So I was really happy for George. It was only his second win of the season, and while they were saying that was wild to me. I found that really hard to believe, because like, he was leading at the start, and I guess it was because he was hyped up so much at the very start of the season that it was his season. So maybe we kind of associated some extra wins and points because of that. But yeah, only his second win of the season, so good on him. It was a good drive, and he did a very good job. So yeah, I was just happy that it was a different winner. I would have been happy if it was Max also, but I think it keeps things interesting that it's keeping the points closer, which is a good thing. And I just loved that he did the T-pose, because every time he doesn't do it, I get really disappointed. I don't know if he did it after qualifying. Yeah, but it was just good. So good on him.
Yeah. I heard that same thing about it being only his second win for the season. But then I heard something even more surprising, which was it's only his 7th win overall.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they said. Go back and fact check that. But 7. And then I was thinking, wait, hasn't Kimi had like 5 wins?
Oof.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
In George's entire career, like these two add up to now his 7 across his career. And then Kimi's just had like, it's 5, isn't it? Like he was on a streak, and I think it was 4 or 5 or whatever it is. But yeah, Kimi's had a lot, just because he went back to back to back to back winning like that. And that was kind of mind-blowing to be like, whoa, imagine like you've been in here for ages, and then this sort of young rookie comes along and is sort of smashing it.
Yeah, it would suck. I guess experience is a really good thing. So I don't know how many seasons has George. Is this his 7th season maybe? But he obviously started at Williams, so he was in a lesser car in his junior years, and then it took some time for Mercedes to get to where they are now. They're obviously very good in this regulation, but they weren't the main success in the last one. So I think that would be really hard for George to like deal with, that Kimi, it's all about timing, isn't it? That he joined Formula One and he's stepped like straight into the best car. But that's just what happens. George still has the advantage that he's been in Formula One and all the media and everything for longer, so maybe that will play in his favour, like with the quali lap that he communicated straight away in the race. Kimi, It was the first time Kimi really did sound very young to me on the radio, and he was asking Bono about what's happening with the brakes or something, but he was like, can you tell me about the brakes? And then Bono was very good, and he said like, oh, this is happening and this is happening. But it was the first time that I really like heard him, as I mean, he's so young, isn't he? But he just sounded inexperienced, and I guess that's just very different to George, and he's very vocal and he knows what he's saying and yada yada. So yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so that was your
P1.
P1, which is
Mhm.
very similar to my P2. And then my P1 is a bit similar to your P2, which is the Max versus Lewis battles that happened this race. So it was sort of like both of them back in the fight, and you seeing them racing each other, which sort of brought flashbacks again to like 2021 and when they were sort of rivals for the championship, competing against each other. So from what I did see with some of the laps where they were battling, it was very close, it was very aggressive, it was one going ahead then the other, and then really pushing the limit in terms of I'm surprised nobody got any penalties or anything there. I think one of the things was under investigation, but it was fine. But they were racing really hard against each other, and it was good to see. So I like that because it felt like they were both almost like on form and able to do that with each other, which was nice. Max obviously got, from fifth, he ended up going into fourth kind of in those opening stages because of Kimi making some mistakes. And then once he was there, he was in it. Like, he was pushing. And obviously, we mentioned Ferrari had some bad calls with strategy and their pit stops and tire problems and all of that, which meant he then, went ahead and got into the top three and then, pushed even further. Yeah, I was really happy for Max, and it was good to see him able to battle with people in that way, as you would have it in the old days, basically.
It was exciting. I can't say I paid like that much attention to their battle. Like it didn't spark my interest as much as it probably should have. But I did see a few of the moves, and Lewis did like some lunges on the inside, and Max was battling pretty hard the whole time. But yeah, that was for P4, wasn't it? It was just cool that there was battles happening. There were some like throughout the field, and then the field kind of spread out quite a bit with blue flags, and then it was
Yeah.
less of a thing. But dealing with traffic, Max had to deal with a lot of traffic, which isn't the same as battling, but he was working. I only sort of noticed Lewis when he popped up on the coverage when they had the radio messages and things.
Yeah. I think it was also interesting. Also, I watched the highlights of this. I didn't watch the actual race, but it looked like towards the end that Russell, Verstappen, and Kimi were really close. So, there was potential for Russell, Verstappen maybe to have gotten even caught up to Russell, and Kimi was gaining on Max. And so they finished pretty close with each other, compared to like Spain, where, somebody was out, like Lewis was out like 20 seconds in the lead. So this was with, the top three being much closer together in the end.
Yeah, which is a good thing. The commentators said they probably would have needed maybe 5 more laps for Max to catch Kimi, I think, or 5 more laps for maybe the podium just to shuffle around a little bit between the three of them. But that's what it ended on at 71 laps. So yeah, it was good.
So that's Austria, our top three podium moments for Austria, which we said was maybe a slightly more boring race than Monaco and Spain. We had a chance to just reflect on Monaco, but we didn't talk about Spain at all. So I wanted to chat about, I think, my top moment from Spain, and then obviously hear
And
from
the
you.
season.
And the
So
season.
far.
Oh my goodness. And that was that Lewis got his first win for Ferrari in Spain. Yes. I was so excited with that. I actually got like quite emotional watching it. He had such a horrible season with Ferrari last year. Like it was painful. We were commenting on it. And then to see him go from that to, he had 2 podiums. I think he finished second place in the 2 races prior to Spain. So he had momentum, with him. And then to be able to finally translate that into a win, which he hasn't, his first one with Ferrari was just absolutely amazing. And it just felt like he is back. And it was also very interesting to hear him thank his fans a lot for this. He did this whole thing about like his fans telling him, remember who you are. And that is something that he held on to. And I even saw Lewis like reposting fan content on Instagram post that race, like, just stories of fans doing stuff, which is pretty cool, I guess, if you're a Lewis fan and he's reposted something that you've said about
while
him
he's doom
winning.
scrolling.
Exactly. Scrolling through all of it. I just thought it was a really great win also, because I didn't think he was going for the win. I thought he was going for another podium. And then they did the 3 stops. So obviously he was doing a different strategy to, I think, the others. And he managed to then force Mercedes to do that. And it was like, he had a very well-timed virtual safety car, thanks to Alonso. So shout out to Alonso for doing that. And so, yeah, it was just so happy for him.
Yeah, it was a big deal, wasn't it? I didn't watch that race at all. I was on an aeroplane. But as soon as I turned my notifications back on, biggest jump scare of my life, and it was the F1 updates popping in, and I was like, is that a red square for win? And then I saw the word Hamilton. I was just like, whoa. And then there were some guys in the aisle, the row across from me, and they went, Lewis just won in Barcelona. And I was like, oh, they're looking at the same thing. Yeah, big deal. Like, obviously it's a standout moment from the season because he's just so famous, just worldwide, isn't he? So everyone kind of paid attention. Yeah, good on him. It was exciting. Yeah, I really haven't seen much about it, but I've seen lots of the memes about him reposting. There was someone at a wedding who like interrupted the groom's speech or something to say that he'd won, and some man getting like a tattoo on his thing, and yeah. People just love him to bits, don't they? So yeah, it was really cool, and it was nice for Ferrari just to get a boost in confidence and everything. I don't know if they really capitalized on that going into Austria perhaps, but you take the win where you get it, and yeah, it was a really cool thing.
No, it was great. I think it was also, again, I remember our first episode, I was talking about seeing Lewis win at Silverstone like 2 years ago. And I was almost talking about him being an underdog, because it wasn't expected that he was going to win that race also because, Mercedes wasn't on top form anymore and all of that. It is a little bit the story of an underdog where someone who used to be so great has now gone to rock bottom, some version of rock bottom, and then they're able to sort of get themselves out of it again, which I think is something that people like, like, oh, it is possible. And I also read that like Lewis he's the oldest driver to win a Formula One race. So at 41 years old, he won this race, and that is the oldest for someone to have done that. And then also he, I think, surpassed Mike the most wins at the Spain circuit. I think he's now won 7 times there, 5 or 7 times, and that is the highest record. So he set a lot of sort of records also with that win. Also, just for most wins, I think he overtook himself with most wins.
I think so. He's got 107 wins, doesn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that must be the new record already. But yeah, I think he'd already passed. I think he passed Schumacher's record from the Silverstone win. That must have been 106.
Yeah.
That seems like forever ago now.
I know. So record breaking. And so yeah, I thought it was great. And also just the podium was pretty cool also because it was an all British podium where it was Lewis and then Lando and George on that podium, which was also cool.
Yeah, that as well was a jump scare for me because I looked at the podium and I thought I saw it on McLaren's Instagram. I thought, why are they posting that? Lewis isn't their driver anymore. That's really weird. And then I read the caption and said all British one. And I really had to look at it to even notice that Lando was in the photo. I had no idea. I thought, why? I just could not understand why McLaren posted it. So shout out to Lando for getting on the podium because I did not notice. But then all the posts made sense. So yes, the all British winners was a big thing. I think I saw the most media about that actually over it being Lewis Hamilton who won. I guess that's like the British bias coming into play. That's like what Sky Sports ran with, and lots of people ran with that narrative. And it's like, just give him his moment. But I guess that's what happens.
Interesting. I feel like I was just flooded with Lewis content. Maybe it's my
Yeah.
algorithm. So all I saw was like all of this Lewis
Honestly,
stuff.
they're the only posts I saw, maybe like 4 posts about it.
Okay, because I
Because I
think
was on holiday, I was having a
yeah,
Formula One
yeah, yeah,
detox. Yeah.
of course.
Mm.
Okay, so yes, that's just a special shout out to Lewis on his win, and obviously we didn't get a chance to talk about Spain, so I'm super, super excited about that. Was
Yeah.
hoping he could convert it in Austria. It didn't quite work out, but he qualified, P3 again, which was pretty strong. It was just the
Yeah.
race that maybe didn't quite work out for them, so they're going to have to try and review that and think about how they move forward.
Yeah.
But what was your meme of the week for Austria?
Well, it's actually about Lewis, which isn't very nice. I've got two. This is what I mentioned about the Ferrari poor strategy, and it was when the VSC came out, and it was he wanted to go in for a pit stop, and he said, "You told me too late," and they just said, "We tried." It was like the most deflated response ever. It was just, "We tried," and you could just tell that while his radio wasn't off, he was like, what is happening? So that one was really funny to me.
I saw that one too. Yeah, that was a funny one. My one was about the sort of, I guess, Russell qualifying lap and the controversy there, but it was sort of Max making fun of that. Where you've got Max there, and GP came on and said there's a yellow at turn 10, and then Max was like, "Oh, that means I go flat out, right, past the car," and then he was like, "I'm joking," because obviously that's what George ended up doing when he crashed in qualifying. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it really was just a Max's back moment. The extra one I had is one of my favorite things from The Office, and it's Dwight and
Saw that.
Angela, and it's just Mercedes being, quite confident in where they are, and then all of a sudden Max is
Where,
there,
where did you
Yeah.
come from?
which is
Exactly.
pretty accurate, I think.
Yeah,
You can't count him out.
absolutely. You can't count him out. We are going into Silverstone
Yeah.
next weekend, which is a special one, I guess, for us because that's where we met, like on, watching the parade lap 2 years ago. How are you feeling about it? You're going to actually be there, aren't you?
Yes, I'm very excited. Yeah, I went last year as well, and so this is my third year in a row, I think. Going as a fan this time on the Saturday and the Sunday, which will be fun. I'm really excited that it's a sprint weekend because I've never been at a sprint race before. So there's just, they're my favorite weekends anyway. They're so busy and there's so much happening. So I'm very excited to be at a track. I'm very excited to be at a racetrack in general. It's been a very long time since I've been to one. So yeah, it'll be really cool. I'm hopeful that the races will be interesting. I don't want a Kimi win. I want a British win, and I'm not British, so that's saying something. I think when the sprint calendar was announced at the start of the season, I thought the sprint race in Silverstone was set up in order for multiple British drivers to have a chance at winning it, and I still think that is the hope. So I think Lewis maybe for the sprint or maybe the Grand Prix, and I'd like Lando or George to take the other one. I hope Kimi has a good season, but I don't think this is the time for another Kimi Antonelli win. I'd actually quite like it to be someone else, and just obviously last year was so special because Hulkenberg got the podium. I want another moment like that. I want a new person to get on the probably the bottom step, but yeah, two chances, which is exciting. So really looking forward to it.
I am Lewis all the way, so I really hope he wins it, and that would be amazing for him. Maybe have George on the podium too, but in the second spot. And I think we might see Max there. I don't know.
I hope
he
so.
feels like he's getting some momentum going, and so I do think probably Max. So if I had to say what I want, it'd probably be Lewis 1, George 2, Max 3.
Yeah.
Is that? But also, yeah, we've got the sprint, so I don't know. But I do want Lewis to win the sprint. Also, just to make it interesting, like you said, I mean, I'm always like supporting Hamilton, but with the championship and all of that, it'd be interesting to see him gain more points there.
Yeah. Yeah, and for I think George to get some points and Max, as we just said, you can't count him out. So the more people that aren't Kimi getting points, the more interesting it will be. He'll probably still have a very good weekend,
He
but
will. Yeah.
yeah, if something were to happen, then maybe it'll change the championship a little bit. Mostly I'm just sick of the commentators saying championship leader every time they say Kimi's name. We understand. Yeah, when it's a very long season and they need to get some new lines because
I
it's
know.
driving me crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But good
Okay.
on him, he is leading the championship.
He is. Yes, we heart Gimme.
We
just
do.
we want to also keep the season interesting.
I want him
and
to work
just-
for it, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so that is our wrap up. Sort of Austria, but then also a bit of Spanish debrief, and then looking ahead to Silverstone. We will see you at the next one.